Well, hello there. Don't call to come back, my, how far we've come. We listen to that, episode 98. Once again, I'm a man of the people, so I'm here with a very requested guest. This is the most requested guest on the Tone Junkie podcast, at least this week. We've at least this week. Stu G is here, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Good to be with you.
And the crowd goes wild, Stu.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Yeah, doing good, thanks.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, encouraged.
Yeah. We've been busy, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
We have been working on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, what are you holding there? That's a beautiful guitar. I always like to ask people about a guitar, and even if it's not your number one guitar.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that it would be hard, but I probably would save this one if my house was on fire. So that's
the one?
This is probably the one, yeah. Either that or my gold top, but whichever was closest to the door probably at the time. But this is my 90s Les Paul Standard. And from the Delirious album King of Fools onwards, this was kind of like my main guitar. On the records and live, this and my Telly and my 135, they were like real standards. And so over the years I've you can see some wear and tear from my kilt belt.
And since I've known you, I've seen that guitar change a couple times.
So I've made a few changes to it. I didn't touch it for years and years, and then so currently pickup wise in here I've got a Grizzly in the neck,
Veritas Grizzly,
and then I've got a third power Magfrag in the bridge, which is a superb pickup.
That might be the only guitar with that combination of pickups.
I know. I think you're right. But also what I've done is I've made a global tone, because normally, like these are the volumes for these two pickups. Normally you've got tones for the separate pickups. I've made this a global tone, and then I've made this a low cut, like a high pass filter almost. Kind of a bass contour, as Reverend call it. But so I had a couple of Reverends for a while, and I loved that control. And so especially with something like the Grizzly, which is quite fat, I can kind of, roll off some low end and kind of make it sound a little bit more like a P90, and it's incredibly useful. And I'm still experimenting with capacitors and values of the potentiometer and stuff like that. But I'm kind of happy with how it is right now.
Well, tone is a journey.
It's a journey, never ending, right?
No, it's never ending. You never quite get there. And maybe when you get there, you wonder if there's somewhere else to go, and then you wander away.
Yes. I mean that it's like that making profiles and making presets, isn't it? Like you start second guessing yourself.
Sure.
And and then you come back the next morning and say, "Oh, that actually sounds great."
And I find myself going in these cycles. Where I want more, and then I want less. I want every sound, every pickup, every profile. A lot of people might be saying, "What are you talking about? When did you ever want less?" You're surrounded by amps and guitar. What a ridiculous thing for me to say. Right? But you kind of go through these, like, I want more. Like, maybe for me it's I gotta have 5 guitars, because one's a Telly, one's a Strat, and then sort of you come back to this thing like, well, maybe I could just get this one to do more. And I just want this thing. It's a never ending.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And the pendulum never stops in the middle, does it?
Yeah. No, that's right. I think like we all want options, which is why we have so much stuff. But at the end of the day, like, what it really comes down to is creating some magic on a track, right? And you've got one guitar and one amp in that situation. So having the options is great, but I find myself going back to a few guitars and a few sounds.
I'll tell you something. I played it on the last episode. I won't play it again on this one, but it was a clip of me from a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And, you know, this little outro lead starts, and as soon as I get to 2-3 notes in, I just smile. The smile on my face is big, and the camera just pans right over to me, and you just see me smiling. And I sent it to Suze, and I said, Suze, this is when you know the tone's good. When you're happy, like when you're elated, it's just sound, And I just remember thinking like, what a great lead tone. Like as soon as I started playing, right? That's kind of the feeling when you're playing a song and it just sits just right, and it sounds like something you'd perk up and take notice of if someone else was playing it, you know. And it is a good feeling. So that's a really awesome guitar. It always sounds great. I'm gonna check it out. There's a great clip I found on. We were shooting some demos, and that guitar sounds incredible, and that's why I want to ask you about it. Because it sounds killer. Here's one of the new profiles that we've been working on. Wowee, what a tone.
Thank you.
I forget actually how good the stomps on the Kemper are. And that was one thing when we were working on this new stuff. You sort of put in several stomps, the Kemper Fuzz and the Green Scream and like the King of Tone algorithm. And you were showing it to me at one point, and I thought, oh yeah, one profile can get all these sounds, which is something I instinctively kind of do on the Helix, because it has all of these, there's blocks you put in, and you kind of assign an on-off switch. But a lot of times on the Kemper, my mind is like dirtier or cleaner with the amp itself. And then at least for me, like when I'm playing in performance mode, I tend to jump to another rig and stuff.
And I do too. But I want to. I feel like I want to use the Kemper like I use an amp. Like, I mean, that's probably old school, right? But I want something with a good bit of headroom and just on the edge of breakup. I mean, it's a classic thing to say.
Sure.
So I'm often finding myself using the third or fourth setting of gain and then winding it back a little bit, and then using the stomps or putting my pedal board in
on there. You primarily play the pedal board into the unit.
If I'm using it live, I predominantly do that. Yes.
And you've been using you have used the HX Stomp and the Helix a fair amount now. Like, I mean, you've been. I feel like I've been seeing you use it more and more. Is what I'm saying.
I've done a gig with the Stomp. I've done a gig with the Helix, and then I've actually been taking the Stomp on the road with a dual amp setup that I can plug my pedal board into. It's like calling it a backup is a little bit less than what it's worthy of. But if when you're flying around, might be going to another country or something, you're not quite sure what backline you're going to get.
Yeah, right.
So I think, you know, I still like if the stages are big enough, I still like to hear an amp on the stage. But the front of house and monitor engineers, they love it when I go direct, and they love the Kemper, they love the Stomp, they love the Helix, you know.
Yeah, yeah. People on the internet have opinions, but everybody I know who plays them live always says they get great feedback from engineers and stuff.
Totally.
Let's talk. So let's talk about what we made, and then I got a bunch of questions for you that people sent in. So we have sort of refreshed the Stu G collection.
We have.
We've made new profiles of what did we do? The AC30.
We did the AC30, the 62 AC30,
the 62 AC30,
and the Park,
and you had sort of those amps looked at.
Yeah. So you know, old amps, you need to get them checked at least every year, and I probably hadn't for a couple of years. So
right.
Yeah, and so I had them looked at. And had them worked on, and on the Park, for instance, we changed a couple of components and kind of brought the low end in a little bit more usable, and tamed the high end a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think it's sounding amazing. And so, we had a chat and said, think we should refresh that pack. Plus, the other thing was that the last time we did that at another studio, and and since I'd built my studio, just wanted to kind of see what it was like with my chain, you know.
Yeah, and we've been doing stuff since at your studio, like what amps did we do at your studio? So the first one's the AC30, the Park, the Arshel, maybe the dual the Roadster. The Mesa?
The Mesa, that's a Tremoverb.
Tremoverb.
Yeah.
That we did in the old studio, right? We did that in another studio. And then we did the latest stuff, like the studio pack. Well, the Stu G studio pack was in your studio, right?
That's right.
And then we did the Monarch this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
right.
I have noticed, piggybacking on what you're saying there, I have noticed, yes, that you get vintage amps, you think you know the way they sound, and then someone goes through them, replaces things that are failing. You get them back. They're louder, cleaner, punchier.
Yeah.
And maybe sounding more like they did when they were new, I would suppose, is kind of how.
I guess so, yeah.
But yeah, the sound does change over time, you know?
Yeah.
I find volume seems to go down. And whenever I get an old amp serviced, it gets like cleaner and louder.
Yeah, that's right.
Which kind of, I think, is a cool feature. But both those amps sound great. And then, I felt like I was Morbius holding the pills in front of you. You know, red pill, blue pill, Stu. Do you want a tone match?
Yeah.
And the gear page went crazy and said, you can't do that. You can't tone match. Tone match does. But we did it. How do you think the tone matching stuff came out? We made tone matches for Helix, for HX Stomp.
Yeah, we did. I'm pretty blown away.
Yeah.
Actually, I always thought the Helix sounded good. But honestly, the tone matched IRs are a drastic improvement, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And it's funny, not everyone feels that way.
I mean, it's fine, isn't it? Like, everyone can think what they think.
It is. There are bastions of the internet that, you wander over to certain places. This is where I'm going to say the name, and then I'm not responsible for what the audience does next. I was on the gear page. I swear I didn't edit that in. I didn't edit the booze in. They were there. No, but a lot of people have a really strong opinion that it's a gimmick, it's marketing, it's not. You can just sort of do that on the Helix, but my opinion of when I first started the tone matching stuff has been, okay, this now sounds much more like my amp with these mics. And not to say that I couldn't get a good sound before, but now I have a sound I didn't know how to dial it in.
Yeah.
I didn't sort of know how to get the presence and the stuff to sound like my mic setup like it does now. What's your thought on how it sounds compared to just using a straight IR in there.
Yeah. You know how like some manufacturers have like the Celestion thing and the two notes stuff, they have like dynamic IR cabinets, right? Or whatever, and you can sort of adjust and move and stuff like that. The tone match stuff, it reminds me of that in some ways. Mm-hmm. You know, the fact that you can take an IR that sounds good, and make it sound great. Mm-hmm. You know, and the tone match stuff that we've done, I mean, I seriously have been blown away by it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a big improvement.
There's something just, and I don't know what it is, but it's just something just more sort of open and natural sounding in the presence to me.
Yeah.
That just really, to me, captures the thing.
Yeah.
You know, that like makes me think it's an amp.
Yeah.
You know, an amp mic'd up, but an amp.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I feel like, you know, you're not stuck with the you can still change your amp parameters in the Helix, and it still sounds just as good.
I think so too. Yeah. I was pretty blown away with you when we were sitting there going, what are we gonna? We have this this Monarch, this Benson Monarch amp, and we had profiled it, and it sounded great. And then we said, let's tone match it. And I thought, what are we gonna tone match it to?
Yeah.
And I instantly sort of sat there. We were at your place, and I said, well, I wonder what other people have used. And I was going to go look it up. I was going to go look up what Brian and Bradford had used, because I think they had done a tone match.
Yeah.
But I haven't looked at the patch.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, you know, I'm going to try the Prince, the U.S. Princess.
Yeah.
And I did that kind of, and this is not a good reason, but I went, that has about as many knobs as the Benson. But I thought to myself, there's no master. It's a simple EQ stack, and that's what that amp feels like. It feels like a kind of a vintage setup on an amp. It's just sounds good, and you turn it up and it gets dirtier.
Yeah.
And I thought, let me use that and let's try it. Now we did it with the US setting, and I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And then we were like, let's flip over to UK, tone match it, see if it still feels good when we do it. And it did.
It did.
And I was like, oh, I mean, wow, this is really cool.
It was almost closer to the original than the AC30 and the Park.
Right.
You know, it definitely took less manipulation.
Yeah, it was really on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, so anyway, that's in there. That's in what we created. So we did some tone match stuff and some Kemper you know, profile stuff. And
I'm actually working on some tone matched IRs for the ACS1 and Iridium as well. So they'll be coming
shortly.
It's coming very
very
soon.
Very soon.
Yeah.
Whenever we get them out. I mean, honestly, it sooner than later. Yeah. I'm excited to see how those come out, because I haven't done much experimenting, but it's something that interests me right now.
And I think it's worth saying right now, you know, in the future, like we might increase that pack with different microphones and what have you. But you know, as a signature pack, like I wanted to start with like less is more in some way, in terms of like, well, these are what I actually use.
Yeah.
And we can like create some options later, but
and they're all done with the Panther, right?
Yeah,
and the
545.
545. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an old. I've got two old 545s.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. And so that's sort of. I mean, that's sort of that's how you mic the amps.
Yeah.
And that Panther mic to me sounds a little more. It's a ribbon, but it sounds a little more focused than a lot of like a Royer 121.
Yeah, it's not quite as dark.
Yes.
As a 121. Yeah. It's still got plenty of bottom end, but like you could use that mic on its own.
I was going to just say it almost sounds like it's voiced to just be the mic there. Okay, let's get into some fun stuff.
Yeah.
You mentioned this earlier, favorite guitar. You said if the house were on fire, you might grab the Les Paul or the Gold Top. People might not know you're talking about is it a 74, 76, 74? 74 Les Paul Deluxe gold top with the mini humbuckers, which I'll tell you, to me, is sort of the Nashville secret guitar because when I moved to town, I noticed everyone sort of had one of those, and it's on everyone's like rack in the studio or wherever. So many guys, country guys, Christian guys, I started seeing them everywhere, and all of them always said, that's a really great sounding guitar, or those pickups sound really great. And now Gibson's reissued them, and they've gone really up in value. I think yours is probably worth double since since I first have seen it. But that's how models go. You know, they're sort of under the radar. But gold top. But what's your favorite? We've seen a ton of your guitars and Tone Junkie stuff. If you had to choose one, I know this is an impossible question, or maybe not this. How about this? I'll phrase it this way. What's your favorite, like, right now? Because I know, you know, there's some guitars that maybe hold a special place in your heart. You can never get rid of them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, what do you reach for the most right now?
So, right now. I am.
Right now.
I'm reaching for my standard Les Paul and my 70 Strat. The brown one.
Yeah.
The natural wood one.
Yeah.
So those two guitars, I have like a huge kind of...
Wait. You mean this guitar?
Yeah, between those two guitars, I can get a whole load of tonal space.
Yeah. What's in the Strat?
What pickups are in there?
Yep.
Bill Lawrence vintage Strat pickups.
Yeah. Yeah. Hard to come by these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hard to come by. Hard to come by these days.
Agreed.
Going up in value.
Right.
All that stuff's going up. Yeah. 70 Strats too. I remember a young HW trolling through Craigslist and guitar centers and old guitar shops, overlooking all sorts of 70 Strats, especially late 70s stuff, going, oh no.
Yeah.
People don't like those. Oh, how wrong I was. Now they're worth a bunch of money.
I'll tell you, I've got a little interesting fact about my Strat.
Yeah.
Is if you look closely on the clips that we've done, whatever, the whammy bar, I've actually bent it up.
Oh.
So that it...
to pitch the angle up.
I've pitched the angle of the bar up so it kind of, sits like that. And it kind of fits in my palm a little bit better.
Do you feel like that brings it more where a Bigsby sits?
Hadn't really thought about that. Okay, I just wanted it to feel a little more comfortable and higher.
Sure.
Because my particular one, it was almost... I mean, it wasn't flat with the strings, but it was like the same... Sure. It was on the same angle.
Yeah.
And I felt like I couldn't dip it quite as far as I wanted to.
So you just bent the bar.
Bent the bar.
It's genius. Simple.
I don't know about that.
How'd you do it? Whether you just like strongmanned it?
So I've got a friend who is a luthier at Gruen's in Nashville, and he did it for me.
He strongmanned it.
Yeah, I mean, he had a vise.
Yeah.
Like if I get a vise from Lowe's or something, it's going to put marks on whatever.
Yeah, right. But he had one. Okay, so those are the favorites right now.
Yes.
But if the house is on fire, one of the Les Pauls.
I think
is
so.
out.
And I would think it's half sentimental and half because I love the guitar.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
because something like your 135, 137, is it a 5?
135.
135.
Yeah.
Probably has a very special place in your heart, but not always the guitar you grab for every session.
No.
It's not.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I basically still keep hold of that guitar just in case for the internet there is ever a Delirious reunion.
Yes.
You know.
Well, hey, that was one of the questions. Actually, I'll be honest. That's the number one question I feel like we get whenever it's content.
Right,
when are you gonna bust that out and do the Delirious reunion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, earlier this year.
Actually, Martin's here. No, just kidding.
Hey, Martin. He's very shy today.
Yes,
just peering around the corner.
He refused to come on camera.
Yeah. So earlier this summer, I was with Marcus W. Smith, and we were in Budapest.
Yeah, big event out there.
At a big stadium worship event, which was incredible, honestly. And it turned out that it was 25 years since we played at a stadium worship event in Wembley Stadium in '97.
Wow.
And it was called Champion of the World. And there's now like a infamous video of Delirious there doing Sanctify, and with a big crowd, you know. Anyway, so it's 25 years. And the promoter of that event in Budapest was at that original one.
Yeah.
And he had his vision was to do a stadium event on mainland Europe.
Yeah.
Stadium worship event. And 25 years later, you know, it happened. It was really his vision, his incredible work over the years of making that happen. Anyway, so he really wanted, he wanted Delirious to play. And Martin was there doing his thing. And so we kind of, had a chat beforehand, and
you got to do it.
Yeah, we did it. So Martin and I played together, and we did some Delirious classics in a stadium.
Yeah, what songs did you play? Because you joined Martin's band.
I joined with Martin's band. Yeah, so we did Rain Down, and we did Did You Feel the Mountains Tremble? We did a bit of History Maker. And can't remember what else, but it's like some big songs.
Yeah.
Here
was a question. Now, last episode, the Suze, he really got a kick that you had asked him a question.
Oh yeah,
and your question was something along the lines of like, do you remember what it was?
Yeah, it was like, how do you keep coming up with interesting stuff to play on demos?
Yes, because he had a good chuckle about how.
Yeah, because when the red light's on, it's like do I actually know?
Yeah,
do I actually know how to play guitar?
I had told him how we had been doing a demo, and you had played something kind of messed up, played something messed up. And then you said, here, I'll just do this. And then you changed completely. Like you just played like a different song.
Yeah.
And then at the end you said, I had to channel my inner Suze. Yeah. I just wanted that song. And
I think he's a great player.
He is a great player.
Yeah.
He is a great player. And we have all these, I've asked him, all the time, how did you sort of develop this, this sort of style? And he doesn't really know.
No.
I'll tell you what I think part of it is. A good part of Suze's job is he has all these responsibilities as a music director. But one of them is just he can either buy the bumper music for his church or he can make it.
Okay.
And he often just makes it.
Yeah.
And so he's just sort of sitting there trying to get after this vibe that is a very kind of chill vibe, but not elevator, but you need it to have some motion and a conclusion. And I think this is what makes it unique. It's almost like a jingle, but it's in these spots in a church setting where maybe the band is walking down and the guy's coming up. And so like, what's the level of like emotion? It can't be too high. It can't be too low. It sort of has to crescendo. It has to have an end. And there it is. Someone described his sound as copyright friendly 90s rock. Mm. So it sort of sounds like something you heard in the 90s, but different.
That's funny. I'll tell you what, that his performance, his Arshall performance, is like I still go back to that sometimes as a reference point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I love about that? That performance and everything is, and the way that sort of came about is, I think, a really cool little pure piece of internet camaraderie contribution.
Yeah.
So Brian Carl actually had a song from Passion. Brian Carl made a performance and Sue's really liked like the delays or something on one of the songs. I don't remember what Passion song it was.
Yeah.
But he said like, I love the delays and what you did here, you know? And then Brian said, oh yeah, it's great. And then Sue started changing it. And eventually he said, he switched the amps out. He switched all the different stuff out, and then said something like, hey, can I use Brian, can I post this for everybody and use your delays? The delays that Brian Carl. And he said, yeah, of course. And we were sharing it in this Facebook group. And Suze had stumbled upon the Arshel, which is your amp, and had gone, wow, this is so full and thick and different, you know? And so he sort of like took the delays from, I think, the chorus of one of Brian Carl's performances, and then just started, that became his main delay sound, found like, you know, after trying, you know, because Suze every week is trying new profiles, you know, pulled in the Arshel, and that became his number one sound. And then he sort of made the worship, you know, what is his go-to. Yeah. And then really, that sort of became the idea for him to build all of the Worship 100, like actually change out all the things, you know, and we use all sorts of different amps there. But the Seuss, I'll tell you, I know he still uses, I would guess, 2/3 to 3/4 of the time at his own church, he's still using the Arshel. Yeah. You know, he'll pull out a new thing that he likes, but sometimes you just get it right. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's cool.
I'll tell you why we haven't redone the Arshel. Yeah. Because I'm afraid we won't do it as well.
We haven't talked about it.
We haven't even talked about it. The reason I haven't brought it up, Stu, is I almost go.
Same here.
I would be so defeated if we said, Stu, let's redo let's do like a version 2 of the Arshel, and we showed it to Suze, and he would never say anything bad, but he would just go, yeah. I would know that's him saying, I'm still going to play the first one. Yeah, you know?
That's right.
Sometimes you just get something so right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a long detour. Suze had a question for you. Yeah. And the question was, okay, what is your favorite song to play? And I'm going to phrase it in two ways. What's your favorite song to play now with Smitty on the road? Like, and why? Is it a song that has a cool part, or what's the thing you look forward to playing now? And with Smitty, the songs are changing a good amount, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of a hard one because I really love playing Secret Ambition. Yeah. I think that would be my top answer. Yeah. I love playing Secret Ambition.
Why?
Because I just think that what Dan Huff did on the original recording is fantastic.
Yeah.
And you know, it's one of the things that I practice in the hotel room pretty much every day that I'm on the road with him, because otherwise it kicks my butt every night. Yeah. You know? So Secret Ambition. And then if I can just add one more on there, sure. I really love the new version of Awesome God. Yeah. That he did on the orchestral worship project, and that we've now incorporated into the live thing. I really love that.
Yeah. How about back in the Delirious days? What was the song you looked forward to playing?
Yeah.
You're gonna do. There's no answer that won't disappoint some people.
No, I mean, like maybe the song that's on the forefront when I think about it now would be the song "Investigate."
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like thinking about that was
that's one of the coolest guitar.
Yeah, it's a really cool guitar song.
Yeah.
But it was always the encore, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So I was never thinking I can't wait to get to the end of the gig.
Yeah.
You know, because there's so many great things along the way.
Sure.
You know, Miracle Maker.
Yeah. People are going to comment Majesty. How is it not Majesty?
Yeah.
Right.
Honestly, you know, I love that. And talk about 135.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So that was the 135 was Majesty, Miracle Maker, Our God Reigns.
Yeah.
In particular, those three songs.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, also, someone's going to comment. Come on, My Glorious. How is that not it? Also on the 135, right? Did you play that on the 135?
I didn't do that live
but
on the 135.
The studio,
on the record, it's 135 with the Park with every control at 10.
That's the sound, isn't it? The 135 and the Park dimed. Yeah. That's the My Glorious sound. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you know what I used to use?
No.
A younger HW playing at probably some youth event.
Yeah.
Had the first. I'm thinking like the first time I probably played that song was like a Hamer Explorer.
Yeah.
Into a Line 6 Flex Tone 2.
Nice.
Like those pods. And
yeah.
a very that was a very early aughts guitar rig. You know?
That's amazing. I'd love to see that guitar.
I wish I still had it. It was it was one of those Korean made ones.
Yeah.
You know, later I figured out that the flame on it was like one of those photo flame finishes.
Okay.
Like they put so what they'll do is they'll get wood that's not figured. Like your Les Paul doesn't have the flame. You can see the grain of the wood.
Yes.
You know, and so they'll take something that has a very plain grain, probably plainer than the Les Paul, but then they'll actually put, if you can believe it or not, a film on top of it that takes away the grain.
Okay.
To sort of haze it out. And then they'll put another film on top of it that has tiger stripe.
Oh, no way.
And that's how all those cheaper guitars sometimes have those really nice looking tiger stripes.
Right.
You know, they look very like flamed out. It's not high quality maple.
Wow.
It's just, they actually put like a printed tiger stripe on it and then they finish over it. And anyway.
The things you learn on this podcast.
I know. This is it's incredible. Yeah, that was, it's funny. At the time though, listening to My Glorious, I would have thought this has to be like a rock guitar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you know, the Park's like a Marshall, so not far away, but I wouldn't have never have guessed.
Yeah.
Now sort of listening, I understand how sounds can be deceiving and can sound different, you know what I mean? But why'd you do it that way?
Well,
just experimenting?
That whole record, My Glorious, was that on Glow? It was, wasn't it?
Mm.
So we were working with a producer called Chuck Zwicky, and I learned so much about recording guitars with him.
Yeah.
First of all, the microphones that he brought over were old and very sensitive ribbons.
Yeah.
And so that wouldn't have in any way been able to handle like loud SPLs.
Sure.
And so we were using Marshall
power brakes.
Yeah,
whatever they're called.
The power brakes, yeah. And so I'd be setting up a tone in the room with the microphone away from the thing. And
is it close mic'd or is it far?
Mic'd. Yeah, it was close mic, but I'd set up the tone without it being very close and full. And then he would come in and we'd kind of like dial the power brake into almost like to bedroom level.
Really?
And I'd be like, this doesn't sound anything like it. He said, come with me. And then, you know, we go in the control room and, I mean, it's mind blowing how your ears trick you, you know.
That's the
compression.
The Fletcher Munson curve. Yeah.
Right.
Louder is, I mean, that's like JHS, right? Josh has that saying, loud is more good.
Yeah.
And that's what he's talking about. Just being a little bit louder tells your brain it's better in all these ways.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of how the ear functions.
Yeah.
Like we lose the heft, all the stuff, and it starts to sound completely different, even though it's not.
Yeah.
We have very poor microphones.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe they're not very poor. They have their own signature.
Yeah.
You know, they do a thing too, and it affects how we perceive sound.
So
you cranked
I learned
them down.
a lot. You know, you'd crank the amp and then you'd crank the power brake down and get these amazing tones. And it was like a real big learning curve.
Wow.
For me, I learned so much from Chuck actually.
Yeah.
And even just in terms of dialing in delay. So one of my favorite recorded sounds of all time is on the song hang on one second, might have to cut this out. The song that everyone can sing, God's Romance.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of my favorite recorded...
Oh, I thought you were going to say a U2 song. I thought you were thinking of an Edge. Go ahead.
Oh no.
What are your? Yeah.
So one of my favorite recorded guitar tones that I've ever made was on Glow, and it was on the outro of God's Romance, and it's that stuff where it's just kind of like big delays that are wobbling, and I don't really know how to say that anymore technically.
Yeah.
But we were Chuck and I were in studio on our own, and there was this old Tokai Japanese Strat laying around in the studio, and we used that, and probably my Park, and the Line 60L4, and we were just like in the studio on our own, just having so much fun, like manipulating that thing,
getting sounds.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
So and I, to this day, it's one of my favorite sections of music that we recorded.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you know that Stevie Ray Vaughan had an album, and I can't remember which one, where he's actually pictured on the front with a Tokai Strat?
No.
And because of his Fender endorsement, they just removed the name off the headstock.
Oh, wow.
So one of his albums, he has a Strat with no name on the headstock.
Okay.
And it's because he had been playing a Tokai Strat live, and I guess he showed up to the photo shoot with his guitar.
Yeah.
And that was the one.
Yeah.
And that's so funny. It really is fun, isn't it? Being able to like dial in a tone for a track.
Yes.
And sort of not being held back by like, how will I recreate this, or how will I use it on another part? You just dial in something very specific for that, and then later you have the problem of how will I play this.
Totally. Yeah. And for a period of time you couldn't recreate it.
Yes.
It's a lot easier nowadays. In fact, I think what we did, we made a God's Romance performance on one of the Kemper packs previously, and I love playing with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Because it gets the sound.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's funny, like even when you were just making on this one, we had a couple patches called Brian Maybe.
Yeah.
It just... But you were doing sort of the harmony stuff that he does, but he's using, I guess it's a quarter note delay, right? And then he's sort of, and then what he's playing is harmonizing with the repeats.
Yeah, that's right.
Whereas on the record, he's just putting in harmony guitars.
Yeah.
And you have to end up doing that. I remember one time in my younger days being in a bar band, and we were making this little record, and I had done a whole song with just a Strat and a Deluxe Memory Man and an orange amp.
Yeah.
And all the parts and stuff I did that night, recording the whole thing. And then it was this huge problem later. How do I get these sounds? Because a lot of it I was playing, and then we were just recording the runaway delay.
Yeah,
and I would let it run away, and then I would bring it back a little bit, and I would try to keep it going just a little bit so you could barely hear it, so that it would just keep... I could never do it live, so I had to I had, at the time, the M9 had come out, and it was my best solution was like, put it with an expression pedal, and try to approximate it, like that, and it always kind of worked, but it becomes something else live, doesn't it?
That's right.
It becomes a different thing.
Yeah. I always used to like going to see bands, like growing up in the 70s and 80s. I saw some incredible bands live, and I always used to love the fact that when you see them live, it kind of sounds like the record, but it's just that little bit more raw.
Yeah.
Like there has a little bit more, I don't know, it sounds more passionate in some ways. I loved that about it, that it was a little bit different, and you were seeing something that only kind of happens that night.
I don't know about you, but I always will look for a live record. Like if someone makes a live record, a live concert, I always look for that and prefer that over most studio versions of songs. Because for what you're saying, there's a lot of it just feels kind of more musical in a way. You know what I mean? It's more interesting, I think. I mean, of course, some songs are incredible. You know what I mean? Like, But to hear bands do stuff live is there's a little more magic in it.
Yeah, no, that's good. Like you talk about the Brian Maybe presets that we made.
Yeah.
That's just a little bit of fun because I have a Red Special. Like Brian May is the reason I started playing guitar.
Right.
And so just a couple of years ago we did some Christmas shows with Mark Martel, and we ended up doing. He's an incredible voice of Freddie Mercury, and has an amazing career doing his One Vision of Queen concerts and stuff like that. But we did Somebody to Love, and so as my excuse, at last to be able to get a red special from Brian May Guitars. And so this patch this profile just started out as an experiment. Like I've got
it's on Helix and Kemper.
It's on Helix and Kemper, so and I've got a Beano boost from Analog Man, right?
Yeah,
treble booster.
Yeah,
and it has like a Dallas Rangemaster setting on it, which is what Brian used to use into his AC30s. And so I thought, I just want to experiment with this.
Yeah.
And I had my AC30 kind of dimed on the normal channel, and then with the treble booster in front.
He must have used a similar year to yours too, as well, right?
Yeah,
it must be a 62,
I actually
63.
don't know. I know he's got. I know he would have used several.
I know,
he's
like
got a ton, but.
Yeah, and I know his. I've seen photos of it having the copper panel.
Oh right,
so it puts it in that range. Like
yeah.
I mean, it now maybe it had a top boost kit added or whatever, but it would be right within those couple years. Yeah. I mean, of course, he probably used a lot of things. He has a long career and everything, but
maybe you're right. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. But
and what's funny is he uses the normal channel.
That's right.
And it wasn't until that we got together and I really started playing your amp that I realized those years of AC30s, the normal channel does have sufficient brightness.
Yeah,
which
really bright.
Later ones do not, like the 90s ones. If there are people listening who maybe most of their experience with an AC30 is a 90s, Korg era AC30, which are amazing amps, but they are not the vintage AC30s. No. They're kind of different animals. And maybe what makes them different is what makes them special.
Yes.
They have a little more. They have definitely more bottom end.
Yeah.
Kind of added in something like I would almost say it sounds like a newer amp. Mm-hmm. Doesn't have that like very shelved bottom end. I think hard to get a Beatles tone out of the 90s stuff, but that might be what makes it. But the normal channels are quite dark.
Yeah.
And the old copper top AC30s, 62, 63, are not that way.
No, they're not.
And we even, whenever we're using your amp, we'll have the tone even low. The cut will be all the way cutting, a lot, and it'll still be, even on the normal channel, very
especially
bright.
if you put like Gretsch in there, like my Duo Jet. Yeah, it's like super bright.
Yeah, super bright. I remember one of the first times we got together, it might have been the first time in a studio with a bunch of your equipment. You plugged in that Gretsch with the Duosonics into the AC30, and you played Day Tripper. Yeah. The amp's on 10. I mean, it's so loud. You know what I mean? You played Day Tripper, I think, on the bridge.
Yeah.
And that guitar, because if people don't know, those old Gretches, the pickups are never balanced.
No.
They're like the most mismatched balanced pickups ever.
Yeah.
Old guitars, they used to just make one pickup, and then they would just put it in two spots.
Yeah.
The idea of a bridge and like neck wasn't there. And for whatever reason, Filtertron, whatever Gretsch used was always the worst mismatch. And so you've got this thing so high with the
pole pieces.
The pole pieces are all the way up, and you just played Day Tripper, and I instantly was just like, that is the sound. That's it. Isn't it? You just hear it, and it's like, that's that thing. And it didn't sound like anything else I'd ever heard, I think, in person before. You know?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, there's some magic in there for sure.
Yeah.
Who would have thought old stuff sounds good?
Yeah.
Would you say, is Brian your biggest influence?
No, he's probably, I would say he's been the most important influence because he got me started on guitar.
Yeah.
So back in the early 80s, so when I was starting to get into things, I was listening to a lot of Rush at the time. So Alex Lifeson was a massive influence. But then I was also into a lot of the British New Wave type stuff. So and the Police, stuff like that. So the Police, and then so Andy Summers was a big influence, and U2 were a massive influence. Mm-hmm. So and that's not surprising when you listen to some of the Delirious stuff, like Did You Feel the Mountains Tremble or whatever.
Sure.
But who else? Dave Gilmour was from Pink Floyd. Like funny story. Well, not funny story. Interesting if you like music. But I went to see Pink Floyd The Wall in 1980 play it live at Earl's Court, which are, I can't remember how many times I did that. Not many.
Yeah.
And so I was able to see The Wall show at Earl's Court and never forget it. Like one of the most brilliant nights of my life. But Dave Gilmour, I mean, what a player, what a sound.
Yeah, sure.
Know? So, so, Brian May, Alex Lifeson, Gilmour, Edge, Andy Summers, and then in the 90s, when I first heard Queen Live Killers, the live album, like that stopped me in my tracks. The next thing to stop me in my tracks was The Bends by Radiohead.
Yeah.
And so, just going on, like Radiohead became apart from the fact that I just love their music, the playing of Johnny Greenwood and Ed O'Brien and has been a huge influence since then.
Yeah, for sure. A great band, probably one of the most influential bands. Yeah. Maybe not the most commercially successful, although now very commercially successful, right? Yeah. But you're hard pressed to find a guitar player that doesn't mention Radiohead. Yeah. We were talking the other day about how loud the guitars are on those records.
Yeah, like you listen to OK Computer. Yeah. Listen to Paranoid Android in a studio situation. I mean, it's kind of unbelievable. Yeah. I wish every album mixed my guitars that loud.
And it somehow works with Tom York just sort of, I would say his style of singing, it's almost like the lack of clarity almost allows other things to be louder than him at times. Yeah. And it's sort of okay. It makes sense. It's like, but beautiful melodies, incredible, kind of a beautiful, of a beautiful voice, but also like a bit of a mumble.
It's really interesting you should say that, because the other day, he's done a side project called The Smile.
Yes.
So I heard a Smile track and I thought, I didn't know what it was at first. And I thought, that's interesting. That sounds like Tom York, but I can hear the lyrics.
Yeah. Tom York, he actually has quite a beautiful voice. Yeah. But their music is not, I don't know, I think, I shouldn't say it. I shouldn't say that. My opinion is he has a beautiful voice because I've listened to Radiohead, but it's not always, it's not pretty. A pretty voice isn't really the sound of that band. So at times it's like it's an instrument used, but even the way it's mixed and sort of sometimes pulled very far back, and then layered on top of these very sort of dissonant or interesting sounding arpeggios or progressions. It's a really complicated mix of things. That's what makes it great. And I don't think you can replicate it really. No. It's like almost like a very expensive tasting menu and a fine, it's like all of these different things coming together, and maybe in the right format they make sense. Yeah. But your mother certainly couldn't put it on a plate and call it dinner.
Right. That's right.
A weird thing. Let's talk about reverb. Yeah. Yeah. Your favorite reverb pedal? I know what you're using and stuff, but in case people don't.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a favorite. Like the one that I use is the H9.
Yeah, Eventide H9.
Eventide H9, mm-hmm. And I like what I've got going on there. Reverb's a funny thing for me because I never used it in Delirious. I never used a reverb pedal in Delirious.
This is where I wanted to go because a lot of people don't know this. Yeah, and it's interesting.
I did everything with delays. Yeah. Excuse me. No breakfast this morning.
Yes. Just tea.
Yeah. I did everything with delays. And I'd have, like, typically I had a Memory Man, mm-hmm. and and something like the DL4. Mm-hmm. I then went on to the Eventide Time Factor. Yeah. And that has the like A and B delays. So did a lot more scope for experimenting with stuff.
Yes.
I did use I had the mod factor pedal that has something called undulation on it.
Yeah.
Which kind of, I used to use as kind of a faux reverb at times. But, yeah, I never really used reverb at all. I'd let the mix engineer like add what he wanted to on that. You know, like I had, like the Park has a spring reverb on it. The Tremor Verb has spring reverb on it. I'd perhaps sometimes when I was recording use some of that. But yeah, so when I moved to Nashville and the sort of more of the worship guitar scene was starting to come into being.
When did you move to Nashville?
2010.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a year after Delirious finished.
Sure.
But already, because of like players like James Duke and his Boss pedal.
RV5.
Yeah. Yeah. Which sounds incredible. I mean, what a player. But
I think James still maintains it's all you need.
Yeah. I think he does, yeah.
Yes.
That it started to become more used. So, I've kind of assimilated, honestly, with the H9s and then whatever we've done with the profiles and things like that.
Sure.
You
do some things that I know where they come from. Okay. Because I pay attention to what you say your influences are in music.
Yeah.
But you do some things, I would say, in several of your sounds that I think sound very churchy. You're using a relatively, maybe a small room or a short plate delay. And then all of the stuff is delay, the time element. Yeah. That, sort of when you hit the note or when you play the chord, all of the movement that you hear is actually the delay ringing out, and the ear hears the space, but I can hear when you play it or when I look at what you've dialed in, a lot of times it's just an actual shorter verb that gives the whole thing a certain sound. Whereas upon first listen, you could just mistake it as a longer reverb.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's...
Sometimes you dial in.
I hadn't really thought about that, but that's true, yeah. Yeah.
It's much more the way an engineer would come afterwards and put tracks together and give them a similar sound and location, like the feel, by adding certain, like a verb to the entire track so that everything now sounds like it was in the same place.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To me, it's kind of what you like, what those plates, are for, even like a smaller room or something,
Yeah. We're getting into territory that's just very kind of like subjective and it like just personal kind of preferences. But
there wasn't a big sky.
No, there wasn't.
Always, right?
No, that's right.
And so like the DL4 was like, I can tap in an analog sounding delay. I couldn't do that before.
No, that's right.
Like that was it,
That's right.
So now my delays could be dark and I could tap them in. There wasn't like a big box reverb really yet that did that. And there wasn't like what we have now.
No, that's right. And it like with the DL4, I would always use an expression pedal and, increase increasing the feedback of the delays was how I used to kind of create a longer, kind of bigger kind of space. And I still do that to this day. And I guess that I'm just old school like that, when I listen to my favorite records, even records that are made now, or you go back to like Radiohead or whatever, there's not a huge amount of reverb on those. There's room kind of sounds that the mix engineers kind of created that space like you're talking about.
It's not big ambient verbs.
No, not big ambient verbs. And I love it. Like on the Helix presets that we've done, there's like there's a snap called ambient because I couldn't fit the T in.
Yes. Ambient, it makes you fall asleep.
I know, right?
It's just called ambient.
Yeah. and then there's big amp, which is even bigger reverbs, and that is increasing the size of the reverbs, and stuff like that. But and then when I do use a longer reverb, even on my H9s, I'll increase the delay times, but I'll turn the mix down a little bit, and again, it just gives you that sort of hint. But I know that it's kind of in vogue at the minute to, especially in the, for praise and worship musicians, to do a lot of the sound engineers work for them.
Yeah, sure.
and create those big things. I find it a little bit too much personally at times.
Yeah, and all of that is like an extension too of, sometimes I listen to Tim Pierce on his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
He talks about being in LA around the time that things shifted from the guitar players used to come in with a guitar and an amp, and that was it. Their signal chain ended at the amp, and the engineer would bring in the mics and do all that stuff. And he talks about at some point in LA, it switched, and you would bring in a rack, and you had the mics, and then you were the guitar, effects, amps, mics. Then you would bring your mics into your reverb units. In the 80s, it switched to like, now the guitar player started using his own Eventide and all this stuff, and then you were just sending 2 XLRs to the board, and that switched and became the guitar player moved from like, I'm responsible just to the amp, and then as effects came up, and a lot of those effects were post production effects, it moved to I send just a direct signal.
Right.
And now, maybe even more, some of the bigger things that might have been post-production tricks in Pro Tools, like big ramping reverbs that, you know what I mean? Like, that is now part of the guitar player. I know that when I record for like, friends who are making records and stuff here, when I'm recording guitars for a track, I will go in and add, and producers have just done this with me, so I just know that it's commonplace to like add an ambient swelling guitar all over the place, and the producer can use it or not. It's sort of up to them. Or you might add layers. I've seen you do this, where I watched you one time. You did your rhythm tracks, and then you said, I'm just going to put on the fuzz and do all the rhythm at these choruses again, these big, and it was just this way the producer can have this big fuzzy guitar, to add on top of my rhythm track or not. It's kind of up to them. And a lot of that like optional stuff that maybe you'd use just for bigness and stuff and these multiple layers is now, it's that big ambient. It's like part of the guitar's responsibility.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. It's all palette, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe I've picked this up a lot from you, but I've done some videos. I did a video even last week talking about delays on the Helix. And one of the things I was talking about was having the delays in series with each other, so that one delay feeds into another delay and makes this galloping effect. You obviously have this very long delay thing, but I was talking about how if you darken the delays, you actually can use very little reverb, and then you still have this quote-unquote ambient sound, And probably I've stolen that from you over the last couple of years. That's probably been, that's probably been an idea, that I've.
It's all good. Like there's no, like sometimes you look back and you think, why was I so not secret, but why did I just want to hold on to all my ideas? And it's like, because there's no need to. There's nothing secret. Just share what you've got. And. I love that about music.
Yeah. That's a great part of the chase for tone is like, oops, I said chasing tone. Now, Brian Wampler will send me a cease and desist. No, I'm just kidding. That's the Wampler podcast, which I'm supposed to go on, by the way. We're trying to work out when exactly we're going to do that. Anyway, what were we talking? I completely lost my. It's the chase for tone. You can be doing this for 10 years, 20 years, and then you'd like discover a new trick.
Yeah.
And because someone did something or had a pedal.
Yeah.
And it just is something that works.
Yeah.
You know?
I know.
It's really
it's amazing. And the what I love about like everything we've done with the packs and the Kemper and the Helix and things like that, you know, we're creating my sounds and my tones, but like you sound different when you play it than when I do, you know. And it's what I love about that is that, you know, you're not giving anything secret away. It's just like they're tools for people to use and become something themselves.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
it's true. It doesn't always. It never sounds like. I mean, it's you know, tone is in the fingers.
Yeah,
it's also in the reverb algorithm. Right, both are true.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Which is a very. It's funny because in the worship genre, you know, it is largely I'm trying to sound like the record. I'm trying to play exactly what's on the record and sound like the record. You know, in that way, it's kind of unique in the sense that when, you know, the worship genre is about, for lack of a better term, covering songs.
Yes.
And not everyone's like this, but there is often in a lot of places a large emphasis, and just the default position of a lot of people is sound exactly like the record, play exactly like the record, which maybe goes back to some of our earlier, the difference between live and on the recording, and all these things. Because certainly I know you must run into this. I run into it. Every worship player runs into it if they're listening. Eventually, there are too many layered guitars. How could you play every part?
That's right.
So you sort of have to prioritize and play something a little different and do a thing. But it always sounds different. It always sounds like you. The Suze always sounds like the Suze, you know?
Yeah.
There's a great video of the Suze. It's called Ultimate Kemper, like, worship tone.
Okay.
It's the Suze playing the Arshel, and I think he plays it along to 4 songs.
Okay.
It sounds like him the entire time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's playing very popular songs, you know, and it doesn't sound like me.
Right.
And it doesn't sound, you know.
Yeah. That's cool.
Well, this has been fun, Stu. I think this has been episode 90. Was this at 98? This was 98 of the Tone Junkie podcast.
Congrats.
Can you believe it?
No, it's great.
What are we going to do for episode 100? You know, an idea we had. Suze had this idea. We should get everyone involved with Tone Junkie together.
Yeah.
Because I realize, like, I see you and I see Suze, but you don't see the Suze that much.
No, that's right.
You know, and I have a great friend, Desi Cerna, you know, who plays on a lot of demos, and then my buddy Matt Revere, who's been playing on a bunch of demos, and he plays for Carrie Underwood. He's a killer guitar player.
Yeah.
Killer guitar player. Loves Sir guitar, so we have that a lot in common.
Nice.
But all these people don't always meet each other, even though there might be a video back to back.
That's
on the
right.
Same,
yeah.
You know.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, we're all like from the same Marvel universe, but we haven't been in each other's movies yet.
That's well, if Marvel is anything to go by, it won't be long before we are.
No, it won't. Yeah, they're on like episode 98 also.
That's just Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, this has been fun.
Really has.
I'm sure we'll. I'm thinking of guitars. I'm sure we'll have you back very shortly. And the new Stu G collection stuff is coming out in just a day or two at the time.
Great.
This will get out there. Incredible tone match stuff. Incredible profiles, and I think a lot of the effects are really great too. I think the drives on the Kemper stuff especially are very usable. A lot of this stuff has the new Kemper fuzz a lot because the Kemper fuzz wasn't out when a lot of this was done the first time.
No,
so I think
you know, every time I plug my Kemper into the rig manager, it seems to want to update something. You know?
Yes, it does. It does. Most of those are bug fixes. Yeah. But I've heard some rumors that there's some new Kemper algorithms coming out soon.
Interesting.
So a lot of people think maybe some mods are going to change because that is the one that hasn't really gotten the updates.
Yeah,
it's sort of the next one. We got a reverb update, a delay update, a drive update. What's next?
Yeah,
you know, there's only so many EQs you can add.
That's right.
So I think modulation is coming next.
That'd be good.
We'll see. And
That'd be very
maybe
good.
They'll fix the bugs.
There you go.
Well, I've been HW. Thank you so much for watching. As always, like, subscribe, do whatever you want. Thanks for listening to Tone Jiggy Podcast. HW and Stu G out.